Hello and welcome to the Big H podcast. My guest today is Kristen Schuth, and we're going to have a long time together to get to know you a little bit better and your achievements and what you're presently on. Kristen, it's great to have you along.
Was I supposed to say it after the clapping?
Did you hear the clapping?
Yep.
It's okay. You like the clapping though, right?
Yeah,
it's a big studio audience down here in the basement
Yes.
of 1419 Hilton Farmer Road.
Sounds good.
All right, Kristen, I usually like to start off with what's a day in the life of Kristen Schuth, both, family related and job related. What goes through your normal day?
Okay, well, so it is a lot about family.
Mm-hmm.
Normal day in the life is get up, get my first child on the bus, then work out, get the second child on the bus, and then head to work for whatever the day is for that. Nighttime is basically work is crazy, busy, but nighttime is depending on my school activities, whether it's a home game event. Right now, I oversee student engagement and inclusion as well. So sometimes it's those events as well. Or it's a baseball game. Like last night, my oldest son had, his third modified game. So I was at that. So it really just depends on what the day is. And, the scheduling is always a fantastic thing, I will say.
So before we get into your family, where do you work? And you said, I know your title, but.
Okay. So I work at Genesee Community College. I've been there. Actually, my work anniversary was May 1st. I started there May 1st in 2013. So I've been there 11 years now. Started as the athletic director, was in the athletic director role until fall of 2019 when I was promoted to an assistant vice president of student engagement and inclusion. And then held that role through the wonderful years of COVID. Mm-hmm. And most recently, last June, my vice president had left, and so I was promoted into an acting vice president role right now. So I oversee a lot of things on campus, but my current title is acting vice president of student enrollment services, as well as the director of athletics still. So I oversee, the dean of students, access and accommodations, student life, residence halls. Wow. Yes, as well as the big beast of athletics, which is my passion. So, so that's a little bit about what I currently do. But
now you said you had 4 kids?
No, I have 4 brothers. I have 2 kids. I have 2 boys. I have a 13-year-old and an 11-year-old. Okay. So yes, they keep me very busy, both actively involved in sports. My oldest plays football, basketball, and baseball, and at the modified level because he's in 7th grade. And then my youngest is involved in the same 3 sports, but at obviously a recreation level because he's not there yet. So yeah, so busy all the time.
How do you balance all of that? Because obviously your job responsibilities are hefty, and then you want to be a mom. You said to me, family's very
family's first, always family first. It's not easy. They always said like it takes a village, and it absolutely does. One of the things I have to say that I'm most fortunate for is my father. My dad is still very, very involved in my life as he was when I was in high school, when I was an athlete, but he actually lives with us. So it gives us like almost like a third parent in the house between my husband, myself, and my father, between my husband's job and my profession. We just work it out. We sit down and, monthly calendars on the fridge, and this is the color coding, and here's who's taken who where. And fortunate for us, I guess I'm the organizer. So I just make sure that everybody's picked up when they need to be picked up. So,
that's the mom. They do. Yeah. A lot falls on your shoulders.
Absolutely. 100%.
What's your husband do?
So my husband actually owns Salmon Creek Country Club. It is a 3rd generation family business. We've owned it since 1973. And so he is busy as well running that. And, most people think country club and it's, seasonal, especially where we live, but Salmon Creek is not seasonal, as we have an indoor facility too. So he's year round, I'm year round. And so, yeah, so we tend to make it work and do what we have to, but yeah, it's busy. Life is busy.
Never a dull moment.
No, not at all.
That's good.
Yeah.
Now let's go back into when you were growing up. Talk to me a little bit about your mom and dad, where you were born, any siblings.
Okay, so I was born in Rochester at Rochester General Hospital. I have born and raised on Manitou Road, right across from what used to be Schmidt's Farm Market. And that's where we lived until we sold the house in 2017 is where my parents lived. I have 4 older brothers. They all went through the Hilton District as well, all involved in athletics throughout their time. And they all pretty much still live local. I have one brother in Buffalo, one in Penfield, and then the other two still reside in Hilton. And so, yeah, it was the normal. And again, I was dragged as a child to every one of my brother's baseball games and things. So that is really where my passion for athletics started, and it just has never ended for me. So
I grew up in a family of 5, 4 boys and a sister. And yeah,
It's
that
very
poor
similar.
sister, yeah, that got dragged around, ended up being a phenomenal athlete. But you're an even more phenomenal athlete, which we'll bring up. What was Hilton like? Your kindergarten through 6th grade education. Where did you attend school for that?
So I actually was in the Northwood district. So Northwood Elementary School, which I loved it. And then in 7th grade was the transition where we joined classes, which was a little nerve wracking when you're a child in the Hilton district because of the two areas coming together. But yeah, and again, where we lived on Manitou Road, pretty much almost backed up to Northwood. So it wasn't like it was a far bus ride or anything for me. So I would say my elementary school was good. I loved it. I loved Hilton. I loved being in Hilton. So
sometimes I hit up people to kind of test your memory. Any influential teachers you had at that time that maybe saw things in you, whether it's academic or athletic? And
so let's see. I've always had support of all of the phys ed teachers all the way through. Miss Wyant was a big one, but that's high school. Miss Satterley was also involved in the high school steps, and then all of my coaches along the way. Elementary school, I can't remember who my phys ed teacher was. Teachers, I remember some of them, but not all of them. So yeah, that is the memory.
So did you have a big interest in sports right away, or any other hobbies that you gravitated to?
So, well, with my brother, so all of them played baseball. All of them played football at times. One of my brothers played volleyball. So, and my dad was very active. So my dad actually used to play ball at, what was it called? Not Forks Park 2, but also Gears Park on Ridge Road before that was torn down. So my dad used to drag me to his fast pitch games because he pitched. So then I started my pitching career a little bit when he used to take me to all of that stuff, because then all the older guys would be like, oh, let's teach your daughter how to do it. And so I would pitch then. And then my brother, my second oldest brother, Tom, he would play there as well and drag me with him. So it was, and I say dragged because I would go to the playground when I could and things like that. But it was one of those things where that's what I knew. And then I started to play myself and I was good at it. So it was one of those things where I liked it because I enjoyed playing it.
Sure.
And then I went through, as I was in elementary school, and I actually laughed because I told my son this the other day. My oldest son, he'll go to a lesson with John Schwind, who's also a local Hilton guy. So he does lessons with him. So does my youngest son now. And he goes to lessons and he gets all these drills, but he doesn't go home and do the drills. And I'm like, you have to practice. And that's where I think I excelled, is the fact that I didn't mind practicing. I love to go out and shoot. I love to go out and pitch. And so my youngest son, though, will go and do the drills. So now it's a back and forth between the two of them of, now they're both doing the drills because my oldest is forced to do it. But I'll say, you need to go hit, or you need to go throw, or you need to go shoot. And I brought up the story to him of my father when my dad would bring me anywhere. I was the only girl. I was the youngest. I would love to say the favorite child. I probably still am, but we won't talk about that. So when I was little, my dad would always bring me to my friends' houses whenever I wanted to go. But he would always say, well, you have to shoot first or you have to pitch first. And I was like, oh, and I would hate it. But at the same time, it made me have a work ethic, which led to my career, everything that, happened in my life led to where I am today. And I do attribute that a lot to my parents, my mom and my dad. But they instilled that work ethic from the time I was really little.
What were your parents' names and what did they do for occupations?
My father's name is Pat Clark. He is still a pitching instructor in the area. Nice. He still coaches a lot of young females that are learning to throw. My mom was Diana Clark. She passed away about 2 years ago now. My father worked at Wegmans Warehouse. He was the fleet maintenance supervisor. So he drove truck for a long time and then became the fleet maintenance supervisor there and retired from there. Now he works mowing greens and lawns at Salmon Creek Country Club, surprisingly enough, just for fun to stay busy. He's not, that's just his hobby, almost like the camaraderie with the guys kind of thing. And then my mom raised us, was a stay-at-home mom for a long time, but then just had like part-time positions here and there. So yeah, she was the one who'd wake up morning breakfast every day on the table, freshly cooked, whatever I wanted to order. Like that
Right.
was my upbringing. Yeah. So I was a little spoiled as a child, but. So.
That sounds like you did have a great childhood, and that you were saying that your dad lives with you now too.
Yeah. So my mom got sick in 2015, and unfortunately was in a nursing home for a while, and then passed away. So when she moved into the nursing home, we decided that it was time, because I was coming out to Hilton to help my dad to take care of the house, because we had a huge 6-bedroom house. And so at that time, my husband and I decided that it was time to build an addition on our home, my dad sold his house and moved in with us.
That's great. Yeah. That is really great, because I've seen people and they say you're supposed to take care of your folks as they age and stuff. And the fact that you're doing it speaks volumes of you, and it's great for your dad too.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, it's great for my children too, because they love Grandpa. He's fun. And the other piece of it is that, I'm very busy in my career. My husband's very busy in his career. And so my dad spends countless hours with my boys, teaching them to hit and teaching them to throw and playing basketball with them and stuff. So it actually keeps him young. And it also has given my kids a little bit of the experience that I had when I grew up with my father. So
that's great to hear. Yeah. I don't know what mean to just brush over it. When you got into middle school, that 7th grade, did you go to Merton Williams? I would probably think.
Yes.
How was your middle school years? I mean, sometimes it's, the middle school.
It was interesting. It was fine. I was still, the biggest transition for me in middle school was the fact that I started to get moved up and playing JV and varsity sports right away. So that was a huge transition for me. And then it was the only time I was suspended from school, but we won't talk about that. But yes, I ended up in a little tiff with one of the boys in my class. So, but whatever, it was fine. 1 week. But, and then other than that, the transition really was hard, because as a 7th grader or 6th, 7th, 8th grade, you're still growing into who you are. And then to be put on teams with seniors, that was definitely tough. But I did have a lot of seniors that took me under their wing. Deneen Snedden, obviously passed away now, but loved her. She was like my big sister, and she would take me everywhere with her. And taught me a lot of who I wanted to be, I guess, in my future too, as far as a pitcher on the softball team and things like that. And then the following year, it was Shannon Amflet, who was, the catcher for the team, but also got me to play field hockey. So yeah, there was a lot of transition those years, but it was fun, and I wouldn't give it back for anything. The hardest part too was also not playing with the girls that I was accustomed to playing with. Right. So that was hard, but we got through it.
I don't say it's a bad thing, but it's just something you had to deal with when you needed to play up, because you got the experience and the talent to do it. And that's where it got you to where you are now.
Absolutely.
So then you 7th and 8th grade, and now you transition over to the high school, a big high school. You probably knew a bunch of kids already over there because you've been playing with them in sports, but what was that transition like into the high school?
Honestly, it was pretty easy because of the fact that I knew pretty much everyone in my class and then all the other individuals that I was playing with. So, yeah, freshman year was fine for me. I not only was actively involved in obviously athletics, but I was also in the band all 4 years in high school. I don't think people really realize that, but my mom wanted me to be,
well-rounded.
Yes, and many different things. So, yeah, so it was pretty easy. And again, the coaches stayed consistent. So I had, Mike Mayer was my basketball coach, and then Kelly Wilkins was my softball coach, and that stayed through. So yeah, it was good, I think, overall.
What instrument did you play?
The clarinet.
The clarinet. Now, were you in a symphonic band, concert band? Did you fluctuate? Ensemble?
I did concert band. And it's funny because at times I had to wear my basketball uniform under the white and the black to run across to the gym as soon as I was done.
Who was your band teacher?
Oh, I had Mr. Baldwin when I was younger. Smalley was my teacher in high school. Yes.
I thought concert band was a lot of fun.
It was. I had a great time.
It was kind of like the band for the people that maybe weren't as serious to get into it, but like you said, your mom wanted to make you well-rounded, and it certainly did.
Yeah.
Concerts were fun.
Yeah. And then I actually did, what's it called when you go to all county competitions? Like when I was in middle school, I did all county. Freshman year, I did all county competitions. Yeah, it was fun and it was different.
Talk to me, or the audience of thousands, what all county was, because in my opinion, maybe you disagree or whatever. My son went to it, and my twin brother did. That's a pressurized situation where you're learning a sheet of music and you got to perform.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's, I honestly, it correlates well with what I did.
Athletics.
Well, yes. So I was the pitcher. Like if I'm not pitching strikes, we might not be winning games. But yeah, it was, you just would go, you'd be in a room and everyone's staring at you and you had to perform and you had to practice. And that was the other part. You know, I was always on the basketball and softball field. So the practicing of the clarinet was always not my strength. But I still did okay at the competitions, and continued it all the way through senior year.
Did you play field hockey in high school too, or did that?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
Who was the coach for that sport?
Kathy Krenzer, Coach Krenzer. So interesting. My freshman year, my dad felt that I needed to find a sport to do in the fall because I wasn't doing anything in the fall. And when I was littler, it was, you know, I do a lot of travel, and then that travel, AAU, all that stuff continued into my high school too. But he really thought that I should do something different in the fall. So I decided that I was going to try out for soccer. I went and I tried out for soccer. One day of being in soccer, I thought I could be the goalie. But it just wasn't my thing. So the next day, and this is all preseason, so it's August. The next day, Miss Wyant is like, Kristen, come play tennis. I'm like, all right. So I go over and I play tennis. I try to play tennis. Well, let's just be clear. Racket sports are not my thing. I try to hit the ball too hard. I guess pickleball might be my thing because you can hit the ball hard.
Yeah, that's the end thing.
It is. But so I'm thinking maybe if I try that, I'd be okay at racket sports. But I don't know. So yeah, so I tried out for the tennis team for one day. And then finally, Shannon Amflet grabbed me and she's like, what are you doing? Come play field hockey with me. And I'm like, but I'm going to be on the JV team. I'm not going to be with you. And so sure enough, I tried out for the team and I made varsity as a freshman, and I'd never played before.
And I don't know a lot about field hockey, but what position did you play?
I was an offensive player my freshman year, but then I ended up being a center mid.
Okay.
So both sides of the field by my senior year. It was a great experience for me because my father had no idea how to play the sport. So he couldn't yell at me.
Or yell at officials or anything like that.
Yes. Yeah.
But it kept you busy. I mean, you probably really liked that.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great experience. Yes, I loved field hockey. It was a ton of fun by the time I learned how to play it, and I actually was pretty good at it.
Well, it seems like you also played team sports. I mean, like field hockey, basketball, and softball. So it wasn't like, I mean, obviously being a pitcher, it all starts with you. And like you said, you don't throw strikes. The game just goes.
Yep. Yes, that's true.
Mike Mayer, I know him very well. I as a teacher, he's a fabulous teacher. I never had him, but my siblings did. Tough coach. How'd you get along with him?
Funny story about my first interaction with Coach Mayer. I was probably, I would say, about 8 or 9 years old. And I was going to his basketball camps at the time. And I walked up to him and I said, I'm going to start for you. And I'm going to be the best player that ever played for you.
I love the
and
confidence.
He'll tell you the story too if you ever ask him about it. And he was like, all right, what? Like kind of just shrugged me off. And then a few years later, I ended up 7th grade year JV, and then pulled up to varsity for sectionals, and then 8th grade year varsity. Right. So I loved Mr. Mayer. Yeah. Mike did everything and anything he could for me. You know, I was advanced in 8th grade as far as taking like course 1 and earth science and all that stuff because I was a pretty smart kid. But when I got to high school, I struggled in math. He would tutor me every day if I needed it. Like he went over and above for us. And I can't say, I mean, he always treated me very, very well. So still does. I still get a Christmas card every year. I give him a Christmas card every year. But yeah, still, and we'll run into each other randomly at different things. And it's always nice to see him when I get to, so.
Christmas card, that still means something.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. It's not something on the Facebook page or something.
Nope. It's a handwritten envelope with our family pictures in it that goes to him, and then he sends me one back, or vice versa. He might send his first. So
beautiful. Yeah. Now, before we get into some of your individual achievements in basketball, how did your team do throughout the years? Like in terms of, any divisional titles, how far did you go in sectionals or in stuff like that? If you can remember.
So I don't remember exact. I do know that we went to the sectional finals my junior year, and actually we might have my senior year too. I don't know the exact. That's been, I've been out for a long time. This is really 1999 was my senior year, so a long time ago.
Who'd you play in your junior in the sectional finals?
Oh, I want to say it might have been Mercy.
Mercy. Did they get you? They beat you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that was the year that Abby Wambach played for them.
Oh, she was playing basketball too?
Yeah, she played both. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And they were very, very, very good. And then my senior year, we went pretty far that year too. Yeah, we didn't win any sectional titles though when I
Mhm.
was here. So
You're competitive though.
yeah. Oh, every
Who
year.
were some of your teammates?
Um,
I
so
mean,
I
you
played
played
with,
5 years, so there's a
yeah.
bunch of
Oh,
them.
there
But
was. Let's see. So I know that we had obviously Shannon Amphlett, um, Lisa Quester, um, then Julie Quester was this younger sister who was my year. I had the Bryant sisters.
Mhm.
I played with Amy Keel, Amanda Ikas, younger. So
Mhm.
she came up into the fold as the point guard my junior and senior year. I'm trying to think of who else. I think there was some more Ikases in there. Lori Ikas. Yeah, so there was a lot of them, but yeah,
How tall are you?
5'10".
5'10". So you're
With these shoes on, probably 6 foot.
I see you walking in. I was like, oh my goodness. Um, so what were some maybe memorable moments, maybe as a game for you or a season, and some postseason accolades that you received?
So, All Greater Rochester was a big achievement
Mm-hmm.
individually for me, multiple years,
Mm-hmm.
which was unexpected. It's one of those things where when you're in it, you don't realize how good you actually
Mm-hmm.
are. You're just
You're the
there, and
best 15 in the Greater Rochester area.
yeah. And I just didn't realize what that meant at the
Mm-hmm.
time. A couple other cool things. I was highlighted in different like news articles throughout my career. I was on the front page of the DNC with my father for Father's Day one year. I'm trying to think of other things for basketball though. 1,000 points was
Mm-hmm.
huge.
Very huge. They didn't have
The
the 3-pointer back then, or did they?
they did, but I wasn't a 3-point shooter.
Yeah, 5'10".
I use the glass. That's my thing.
Kids don't know how to use the glass.
Oh no! I told my son last week that he was walking home if he didn't start using the glass. So yeah. But yeah, the 1,000 point was a big one. When I broke the school record was a big one.
Who'd you break, by the way? Who had it at that time?
I don't even remember.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, as you know.
Is that I broke it.
Hmm?
Yeah.
What game do you know who you beat it? You did it against? You know.
I played in so many games,
Yeah.
so many years that it's hard.
Well, like you, I might be juggling around a little bit, but staying on basketball, explain to our audience what AAU was like and how that prepared you for school ball and even getting recognized for college recognition.
Yeah. So AAU was obviously it was so back when I played, we didn't have just a Hilton team.
Mm-hmm.
We had to combine teams. So I played with a lot of Brockport girls,
Mm-hmm.
and we would actually play in Brockport. My dad every week would drop me off at practice, and then we would go compete on weekends and things. But it was definitely a mixture of. There was actually one Churchville girl, and then a bunch of Brockport girls. The Cooling sisters. One, I think her name was Aldrich was the last name. And it's funny because my husband actually went to Brockport and played or was in high school with all of the girls that I played with.
Okay.
So that was interesting too. But yeah, it was heavy competition. It was high elite. It was the best of the best was playing in the AAU at that time. Now it's, now it's even bigger where they're traveling even bigger, even more in, invitational tournaments and things like that. So it'd be interesting to see what I could do now if I could go back and compete now.
Right.
But, yeah.
Well,
I have 43. I don't want to compete now at 33. I mean, go back and be 18 again.
Yeah, I don't think people want to go back in time, but
no,
it would be interesting to see what would happen.
Yeah.
So 1,000-point score. What would you average on a normal year? Not say normal. Your junior, senior year. How many points were you averaging in the game?
Oh, 20 plus points a game.
Points,
yeah. I think it was like 21 or 22 points a game.
So Mayor knew to get you the ball.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Between Sherry Bryant in the outside because she was the 3-point shooter and me on the inside. My junior year because Sherry was a year older than me. We were good.
Uh-huh.
And then my senior year, Amanda Ica stepped into Sherry's role a little bit as the 3-point shooter.
Uh-huh.
And so yeah, it was. Yeah, he knew to get the ball. It was either her or I taking the shots the majority of the time. So yeah.
All right. Now let's switch gears to softball, which also brought you a lot of fame. Kelly Wilkins was your coach.
She was.
But it sounded like your dad was the one that initially taught you how to pitch and some of his buddies from Pierce Park. And
yep. I had a lot of skills when I got into the program already. Stadmiller was also my JV coach my first year. So I played for her and she was fantastic. She's still coaching, right?
Yeah.
At the high school.
She doesn't coach softball, but she's big in soccer.
Soccer. She was the varsity soccer coach then too. Coached JV for softball for a while. And she actually pitched in her history too. So I learned a little bit from her. But yeah, my dad, so the pitching aspect of it goes way back in my family. A lot of the Clarks on the men's side through like his uncles pitched and things like way back. So my dad knew how to throw, still does know how to throw.
Mm-hmm.
And so then he taught me, the fundamentals of it. And he worked with me all the way through. I've always worked with my father. Kelly was more of an outfielder, infield, like shortstop, center fielder. She really didn't have the pitching mechanics type thing. So my dad actually helped out a lot with our team too, with the pitching, with pitchers. So
how were you as a hitter?
Good. Yeah, I batted fourth in our lineup.
All right. I'm going to add the next question. And where'd you bat in the lineup?
Yeah, third or fourth. And that continued all the way through college.
Now, as a softball pitcher in high school, or even college, you can pitch pretty much every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
The wear and tear isn't too bad.
It's not as bad. I think
bad.
that I don't think they do it as much anymore as they did when I played. I pitched every game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There was very, very rarely was I not on the mound.
Mm-hmm.
My 8th grade year, I played first base during the sectional time and things while Deneen pitched.
Mm-hmm.
But that was really the only time in my career that I wasn't on the mound.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And then team accolades first. Like, did you guys ever win the title, or did you make it to the finals? You're good, but
we made it to the finals. Yeah. 2 different years that I was there. 8th grade year we made it, and then my junior year we made it to the finals as well. We lost to Brockport.
Okay.
Yes, I do remember that. That was very significant. So, yes, we lost by 1 run.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
Close or blowout? Because I don't know. As an athlete, would you rather get blown out or lose by a smidge? Or you're an athlete, you don't want to lose at all.
No. I never wanted to lose, ever. Right. Still don't like to lose. Right. I would say it's better to have a close game, right, than be blown out.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Competitive.
Mm-hmm.
So with softball, what are some of those individuals? Did you make AGR for that too? Mm-hmm. All count. I mean, if you make AGR, you're definitely in first team all county, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And then, so as you're in high school, and now you're starting to think of college, did you want to focus in on one sport, or did you I want to go to school and play too?
So at one point in high school, I had to make a choice of whether to do travel softball or to do AAU basketball, because both were blowing up to the point where I couldn't do both. Mm-hmm. So I did local AAU basketball, and then I did the travel for softball. So I traveled all over for softball tournaments during the summer. And that's when we really started the recruitment process. And I was slated originally to go away on a Division I scholarship. I had signed an LOI and all those things for softball. So softball was where I was headed. And I think it was because I was a center and I could shoot, but I wasn't big enough to go to that level. And so I think that's what geared my decision to try to go on the pitching side, because I was, I could have thrown at the Division I level. So that's really what it was. But
what's LOI stand for?
Oh, sorry. A letter of intent.
Okay.
So if you're going to a Division I school, you have to sign a letter of intent with them. So I signed with St. Bonaventure in June of my senior year to go there. And then ended up where things weren't electronic and I was missing a piece of the puzzle. And so very late, the coach from there called and said, you were advanced in 8th grade. You don't have enough core credits. So my options at that time were to stay home, go local and play both sports, or take the chance that I go to the Division I university and then don't have a scholarship. So I chose to stay home and play both sports. Mm-hmm.
So, and how did you end up choosing Brockport? Were they really good at that time, or is it close to home? Did you or what was the idea behind that choice?
So I was being heavily recruited by a bunch of different schools at that time, but I actually played for my softball coach in college. I played travel softball for him since I was.
What's his name?
John Duma.
Okay.
So I started playing for John Travel. That was before he was coaching at the college level. He was just coaching at the high school level. And John was a pitcher too. So I picked up a lot of skills from him as well. But started playing travel through Grease Thunder first. And then we were called the Rochester Rebels back then. And John was my head coach. And so I played for him since I was 9 or 10 years old. And so he started recruiting me. And then he, once he realized that I had to make the choice and I knew that there was an option for me to play basketball there too. And Michelle Karen had come out and watched some of my games. And so it was, close enough to home. I could play both sports. And so that's where I chose to go.
Yeah. And then who was the basketball coach that was there?
At Brockport was Michelle Karen.
Oh, Michelle Karen. Okay. You mentioned her name. Okay. I was trying to is that the soft? Had she had something to do with softball or whatever?
Yeah. So John Duma was the head softball coach, and then Michelle Karen was the basketball coach there.
You had highly successful college athletics too. Explain to our listeners, watchers, some of the achievements that you did make, because I know them. I got them right here.
So it was funny because, again, I was never the person who thought that I was always going to be the elite athlete that I was. I just worked hard. And I attribute that a lot of what I am as a person to hard work. I always say, I'm not always the smartest person in the room, but I will be the hardest worker in the room. So when I got to school, my freshman year, we did fall softball, winter basketball, spring softball. So I started out fall softball throwing for the softball team, but then after practice for fall, we only played on the weekends. I would leave practice and I would go to basketball practice. And so I already knew some of the girls on the softball team just from how embedded in the community I was. I didn't know a lot of the basketball girls. So I was actually afraid I was going to get cut from the basketball team my freshman year. So got over with fall, went into winter, and ended up being, we had a senior at the time. Her name was Jen Finelli. She still holds the record for the most points scored at the school. She was the player of the year for SUNYAC that year, and I was the rookie of the year that year. So it was pretty cool to.
And that would be 99, 2000?
Yep. Okay. Yeah. So I was awarded that at the end of the year banquet, which was held in Utica at the time because our SUNYACs were held in Utica at the Odd there. And so, it was surreal because I honestly, at the beginning of the season, was so nervous that Michelle Carey.
You almost were worried about making the team.
And then I end up being the player of the year by the end of the year or the rookie of the year. So freshman player of the year. But, that was a cool experience for me. One of the biggest things for me, just because of where I was. And then I started to realize that, this is for me and I'm going to do this. And then in basketball wise, I, continued to just do what I needed to do. And then my junior and senior year, I was SUNYAC player of the year, All-American.
For 2 years, you're All-American?
Yep. For 2 years, junior and senior year. And then my senior year of basketball, we ended up winning the SUNYAC title. Okay. So I was the first person that got to climb the ladder and cut the net right after coach. So it was pretty cool. And then playing the NCAA tournament, which was awesome. And then lots of other accolades along the way, obviously, like, MVP of the team and the team awards that I had, but those were pretty much the big ones. And first team all SUNYAC every year. And then for softball, same kind of thing. I was not rookie of the year, but I was pitcher of the year one year. And then my junior and senior year was also, so I was pitcher of the year, but not player of the year. I'm trying to think of what else for softball side, because there was another pitcher that was really, really good from Genesee. Last name was Tubb. I think her first name was Sarah Tubb, maybe. But yeah, so I just continued to work hard, and we did not win anything for softball when I was there. That's
going to be my question. Anything?
No, we didn't win any. We did end up going to ECACs one year, and we won that tournament, but we didn't. We went to ECAC because we didn't qualify for SUNYAC that year. It's a long list of.
It is. Bear with me.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It's fine.
Clark, two-sport athlete, broke many school records. These included career records and best earned run average, 1.18. You still have that? Most games pitched, most wins at 69, and most strikeouts, 639 for the Eagles softball team. Yep. Not bad.
No, not bad.
For the basketball program, she holds most points in a season at 596. Highest scoring average in a season at 20.6. We'll round up to 21. Second career all-time leading scorer, 1,780. Who's the number one you just mentioned?
Jen Finelli. Yep.
Okay. Yep. And then the second career all-time rebound leader. Two-time All-American.
And I was an All-American in softball too.
And in softball too.
Yeah, it was an NFCA All-American though.
Okay.
Yeah.
You must have hardware galore in your
I used to.
She cave or who's got it now?
We boxed up a lot of it. Some of it's in my office at work. But some of it we did donate over the years. My brothers used to joke and call it my shrine because it was all over the one wall of my parents' house. Yeah. So yeah.
What were the brothers like when they're the little sisters getting all these awards?
They bust my chops all the time about it, but they were so supportive. So my brothers all the way through my career have followed everything. My one brother, my oldest brother, went to every single one of my senior year basketball games and softball games in college. Traveled
so you're traveling a lot.
Potsdam, Plattsburgh, Oneonta, North Country, like up north, like he would be at every game. So they were supportive, and, they are part of the reason that I became that athlete.
Right.
They didn't go easy on me when we used to play in the yard or in the
Right.
barn, wherever we were playing. But yeah, so they were, I was the only girl, and I think they all in different ways appreciate me. And still to this day, I mean, I'm the one who hosts all the family parties and does all those things. So yeah.
You could see that.
Yeah.
So you're an accomplished athlete and everything. Did you have to give up anything in college? Like, you know what I mean? Like, the college experience is also really big, but you're in this athlete, and then you got to balance academics. Did you ever feel like you were missing out on anything?
So, it's funny. Now, especially when I'm coaching, when I was coaching at Genesee before I became the position I am now, the athletes are, oh, I'm so tired. And I'm like, you're only playing fall and spring.
Right.
Like, you're not playing winter too.
Right.
And so I joke that I don't know what it's like to be a normal college student.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had a great college experience.
Mm-hmm.
I would never give any of it up. I loved playing basketball. I loved playing softball. I still did the college things. But it was just, I was so regimented, and so I would go to class every morning. I normally start the day either at 8 or 9 o'clock, depending
Mm-hmm.
on the day. Go to class, come back, do my homework, eat lunch. And then I would, if I'd have time, depending on my homework, I would maybe take a nap, maybe
Mm-hmm.
not. My college roommates were napping all day.
Mm-hmm.
And then, go to practice until 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night, depending on what season it was and when we got done. And then I'd come back and be so tired from the whole day that I just repeat it the next
Mm-hmm.
day. And so it's funny because I guess that kind of is what I do now with my
Mm-hmm.
whole life is like busy,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know how to sit still. So.
And so what major did you pick in college?
I actually started out as a phys ed major.
Okay.
And I was I aspired to be in my program in college, either an athletic director or a sports agent were the two things I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that really was my passion, like from the get-go. Dick LeBeau was the athletic director
Mm-hmm.
in high school. And then Lynn Case was my my college athletic director. And I spent time with both of them. And I really did think that was the path I wanted to take. So, but I sat in my freshman year, intro to sport management class. And the instructor then said, all right, if you want to be in athletic administration and you don't want to teach, you should not be a phys ed major. And so that day I decided, all right, well, let's go change my major.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was decided to go business because at that time, SUNY Brockport didn't have a full sport management program. They do now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was business with a concentration in sport management.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Graduated in 4 years?
4.5.
4.5.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, I was like 9 credits short. So I decided instead of taking summer classes, I went into the workforce a little bit and then coached my 4.5 year. I coached assistant coach of the basketball team that year.
And what were your responsibilities there?
Recruitment, practice a little bit, practice planning, working with the forwards primarily. And then also on the court, a lot of times she'd turn to me and be like, because when I played, I'd come off the court and be like, this is what they're running. Here what we need to do, And so she would turn to me a lot of times and be like ask for my opinion of what was next.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really when
Who was that?
That was Michelle Karen, my basketball
coach. Okay, gotcha.
So I assistant coached with her for the 1 year. So 4.5 years it took me. But
what are some early jobs maybe that you had in high school, or did you have a job in college just to get some spending money, anything like that?
So my first job, I was a dishwasher at Crescent Beach Hotel.
Yes.
Because Crescent Beach was only open on Fridays and we didn't play sports really on Fridays. So I would go there and work and wash dishes, which was fun. And then, and that was through high school pretty much. And then in college, during the summers, I worked at a Burger King.
Mm-hmm.
And then during the year, I would be a work study for the athletic department. So I worked a little bit home events. I worked a little bit in my Coach Karen's office because she was also a full-time instructor. So she had some job responsibilities for me there. And then right out of college, that 4.5 year, I was like, all right, well, maybe I'll try business. Maybe business is for me. So I worked at a telecommunications company and sold headsets for 6 months, hated every minute of it.
Were you any good at it or just didn't like it, so you were bad at it?
I was good at it, but it wasn't for me. It was,
Was it a cubicle type of thing?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. And so I decided at that point that it was time to figure something else out. And I was in my college roommate's wedding when her coach from Elba came up to me and said, hey, there's a job opening at Genesee Community College. There's a softball job open. You should apply for it.
Mhm.
I'm like, I'm not going to get that job, but hey, what the heck?
Mm-hmm.
Applied for it, got it. And then that's where my career started. And then I gave up the KGP telecommunications company. I gave my 2 weeks notice and started my master's degree shortly thereafter while I was coaching.
And wasn't it Pennsylvania or something that you got your
So I did
master's?
it was one of the first online degree programs, but it was like where you had a cohort and you had to travel down there multiple weekends.
Okay.
But you did most of your work remotely. So I still lived here, but did my master's work at California University of Pennsylvania.
How did you do in those years as the softball coach at Elba?
So I was actually at Genesee, the Elba
Okay.
coaches who said it to me, but
I think you were successful there, right? Didn't you have some good seasons there?
Yeah. So my first couple years it was building because we
Mhm.
were really, when I took over the program, it really was like a recreation program or kind of like a club sport.
Mhm.
It wasn't supposed to be that way, but that's how it was always treated. So when I took over, my first couple years was just building it. And then my third year coaching there, we made the regionals for the first time, lost in the first round. And then my fourth and fifth year, we made it to the sweep semifinals. And my final year coaching there, we made it to the finals. We lost in extra innings. So
All right. I have down here 2010 WNYAC Women's Coach of the Year.
yes.
Is that softball,
Yeah.
right?
And that's the year we went to the finals. Yep.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yep.
And you said it took a couple of years to build the program.
Yeah.
When you're building the program, is it heavy recruiting? Is it developing, talent? What is it, or a little bit of both?
So it's multiple things. It is the first thing is making sure that you have enough numbers for the first year. Cause I got the job, I think in July and we started in August. So the recruitment pool was kind of done by then. So the first year was just trying to hold it together. But then the second and third year, it was going out and recruiting kids of a certain level, talent. We actually went a little bit international. So I went to Canada a bunch of times and tried to get some Canadian athletes down here. And I was successful at that as well. And then it's also building the culture. So when you come into a program and they're not used to being held responsible for, different things, you have to make sure that they understand where you're coming from. And as you get the more talented, committed athletes, it happens naturally, but you also have to be there to make sure that it happens. So
interesting. Building culture. I've heard culture a lot in a lot of professions, but I get to build it. All right. So then you get the master's, and then what happens after that?
So as I'm getting my master's degree, I, again, would be around all the time doing my work in my office, obviously getting better and more successful on the softball field. I had an opportunity to take over as the sports information director there at Genesee. So took on that role. And then as I got further into my master's degree, doing the sports information, coaching, then they came to me and offered me some opportunity to teach in the sport management as well as the phys ed department. So I started teaching, and this is before the hours, you couldn't work over so many hours thing was in play. So I was coaching, teaching, sports management, and then also SID. And then they also came to me and asked me to be an academic advisor. So I was working 4 part-time jobs on campus. But that is what led me to have the experience necessary to move on to be the assistant athletic director at Finger Lakes Community College. So, and I'm trying to think of the years. So in 2010, right after my very successful finals in May, in October, I left Genesee and I went to Finger Lakes as the assistant athletic director. I was also pregnant for my first child at the time.
I was going to say, when did you get married and all this?
So 2009.
Okay.
So got married in fall of 2009 and then had my first son in 2011. So when I left to go to Finger Lakes, had to say, yes, I'd love to be your assistant athletic director, but I'm going to need maternity leave in 5 months. So, but it all worked out and went there. I loved my experience there. I had a wonderful boss who taught me a ton of things.
What was his name or her name?
Bob Loudon, actually, and he is Loudon Point Road is named after his family. He was his family originally was from Hilton, so we knew a lot of the same people. And he used to actually play with Duma at Gears Park the same time my father was there. He was in that whole group of guys that played up there. So I went there and enjoyed the 3 years there. Did a lot of things, created websites, did lots of changes. I was the first assistant athletic director that they had. It was a new position. So got to build that a little bit along the way with Bob Loudon. So, but he taught me so much about the career And, and he was a lot like me. And, sometimes we're fiery people sometimes. And
Mm-hmm.
he taught me that, 24-hour rule. If somebody makes you upset, don't respond for 24 hours or try not to.
Mm-hmm.
So I still instill that in my career now. He also taught me, eat a frog. If you're going to eat a frog, eat it first thing in the morning. I'm like, what does that mean? He's like,
seriously.
well, if you got to fire somebody or you got to do something bad, do it in the morning because the rest of the day can't get any worse.
It's a good point. It's a good point.
He also used to say, the other one that I took with me was dress for the job you want, not the one you have.
Right.
He was very professional from the time, a lot of athletic administrators, sweatpants, sweatshirts all day. He was professional every single day. And so I carried that along with me as well in my career. So, yeah.
Well, I can tell just from talking to you that you don't mess around. If you want to get a job done, you go get it.
Mm-hmm.
Anything in all those jobs that you took when you were, sports information director and all this, that you're like, oh, or did you just still face your fears and just take it on and just battle through all the muck?
Yeah. So it was, each job that I had, I did like. I will say that I wasn't meant to be a faculty member. I wasn't meant to be a teacher. I did the activity courses were fun, and we'd compete and do fun stuff in those classes. And the sport management classes in person were great. Sports information at the time was a different beast than it is now. I think if I would have ended up the sports information director back then, I might not have ever left sports information.
Mm-hmm.
The creation of graphic designs and the way that social media has blown up and all those things, I think I could have been very good at that. Mm-hmm. Back then, it was writing articles, sending them to the newspaper, not to get them published, taking pictures, not to get them published. So sometimes it was a little frustrating on that end. We didn't have a good website that you could put stuff up on, because you're talking, this is early 2000s that this was going on. So, I think that was the most frustrating part, was doing a job that you didn't see the outcome a lot of times from. But
you were laying the groundwork.
Yeah.
I might be jumping around the timeline a little bit.
No, you're fine.
Appointed AD at GCC in 2013.
Yep.
What was that? What was the status of GCC at the time? I know when people take over as administrators, they like to meet, they like to establish goals. What was it like there at that time?
So the history of the athletic department at Genesee, we had a guy that I actually hired me. He was there for years. He ended up leaving, and then they appointed the long-term basketball coach as the athletic administrator there. And she was more of a status quo person, where when I came in, I was like, all right. And I didn't make a ton of changes my first year. I kind of learned. Mm-hmm. But then it was like, all right, how do we get to the next level? How do we become the next best thing? And it took a while for us to get there. And it's also, at 2 years, it's a lot about the coaches. Mm-hmm. It's about, getting people who are going to go out and recruit good athletes that are going to provide the experience, creating the culture, all those things that, I took into my program when I was coaching. I also wanted my coaches to instill in their programs. Mm-hmm. I also feel that it's a big part of it is the fact I immediately created a family culture, mm-hmm. where if you come here, we're going to take care of you. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're an athlete here, you can come to us at any time. We're going to have an open door. I have an open door policy all the time. I still do, even mm-hmm. though I'm the acting vice president. My life is crazy. Mm-hmm. If my door is open, they're more than welcome to come in and talk with me. I think that the athletes feel comfortable with me, myself, as well as all this, my coaching staff, which is huge. But it was just the values that I had as a coach. It was trying to transition them back into the culture for all the coaches. And again, that was a big piece of what Bob Loudon thought. And that's what I learned when I was at Finger Lakes. Another big piece of it, at the junior college level, a lot of times you don't have full-time coaches. Mm-hmm. If you do, you're the bigger schools, the Division I, and those schools do have, full-time coaching staff, but we just don't. So when I first started, I only had I had two full-time coaches, and an assistant athletic director. That was our full-time staff. Mm-hmm. It was it. And now we've grown a little bit, and I've managed to get more people on campus full-time and things. But it was really that, getting all those individuals to buy into what you're doing. But then the coaching piece of it was the fact that they're buying in, but they're only part-time. How do they have enough time in their day? So I had to get our administrative team on board with, we're going to do everything we can for our part-time coaches, whether it's me filling out room assignments, or, travel arrangements, or whatever the things we could take off their plate so mm-hmm. that they can focus on the student experience and the actual coaching piece mm-hmm. of things and recruiting. That's their job. All the administrative things we need to take on.
Right.
So it was a shift in the culture, because we had prior had them doing a lot of that. Sorry.
Well, I hate to say it, like a lot of coaches, they just want to coach. They do not want to handle roster building. Like they just want to do the X's and O's.
Yeah.
Have you had to fire people before and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Describe a challenging experience that
yeah.
was uncomfortable for you, but
So honestly, that is literally the worst part of the job.
Mhm.
I would say there's two things that are bad with the job. If you have to fire anybody, it's not fun.
Mhm.
The other part is student discipline is also not fun. But challenging, actually, challenging. My first day on the job, my softball coach was getting let go.
Mhm.
So I had to find a way to finish the season with that individual and then also find a replacement for that person.
Mhm.
That was challenging. But then over time, it's situational. And a lot of times when you're in the athletic realm, it is the conversation of like, I need you to do these 10 things in the next year.
Mhm.
Do you think you can handle that?
Mhm.
And if you can't, maybe this isn't the right place for
Right.
you. So I have, I don't know how to say this politely, but I forced resignations more than I have fired individuals, if that makes sense. Especially with this day and age, you can't just fire anybody. You have to.
Right.
So a lot of times we come to an agreement because I do have a good relationship with most of my coaches. It's just you're not meeting the standard or you're not recruiting or, you didn't have a season this year. You didn't have enough players to play
Right.
for you. Like that's obviously part of the job. So, and in athletics, it's a win. It's not all about winning, but you can tell from what's on the court.
Right.
From my perspective, it's not necessarily, it's more about the student experience and what the students are going through. So we've had losing seasons. I haven't fired my coaches. That's not who I am. But it's all the pieces of the puzzle that have to be going on at the same time. So
You also said that student discipline is also tough.
Oh, yeah,
Explain
it's
an
not-
experience, or how does that go? Like, is there a written code of conduct and they get it and they know it? They break it?
So I'll be honest, my student athletes most of the time are very intimidated by me until they get to know me a little bit, but they know that there's an expectation. So my first couple years, I dealt with a ton of discipline, but as we got further and further along in my career, I guess the history tells itself to the student athletes. So they know the expectation and they know that I'm not afraid to remove you, even if you're the best player on my team. And so, I've had to, at one point, we had to suspend 6 of our basketball players, all which played. So we had 5 people who never played playing in basketball games for a couple games. I've had, lacrosse players be suspended for different things, and it upsets the coaches when you suspend their kids, but if they're not doing what you expect. So I guess it comes back to the culture too, because I had way more discipline my first few years than I have now. We have a code of conduct on campus. That's a student code of conduct, but then the athletes have to sign an additional code of conduct that lists all the expectations and all the things they aren't supposed to do. So it's pretty cut and dry. We are a teaching institution, obviously, so we try to mentor and mold these students, and we understand that, things do happen, but they can't happen repetitively. So.
How many sports do you have on campus and as girls and boys?
So we have 3 fall sports, we have 4 winter sports, and then we have 4 spring sports currently.
Do you have a busy season or a busier season? I guess they're all busy, but
so for athletic wise, fall is the busiest because you have the soccer programs in full swing, you have volleyball in full swing, but then you have basketball's training, swimming training, men's and women's lacrosse training, and baseball, softball training. So everyone is playing in the fall. So that's when you're meeting with everybody about code of conduct, and you're trying to make sure that they have the ground rules for how the semester is going to go, and moving students in, and athletic orientation, normal orientation. So in the athletic world, it's definitely fall. In my current role, it is this time of year is actually really, really busy because I oversee everything from basically the time you come on campus till the time you leave campus. So that includes orientation, but also graduation. So we're in the process of, all the year-end things, year-end student engagement banquet, year-end athletic banquet next week. Then we have, graduation on the 18th. So making sure commencement goes off without a hitch, like all that is now my responsibility too. So. Yeah.
I'm chuckling, but it's
yeah, it's a lot, but I would never, I love Genesee, and that's why I'm obviously location bound because my husband owns a country club here. But yeah, I love the college. I love the people I work with. I love my college president, who's unfortunately retiring. But yeah.
I think he said something nice when they hired you. I don't know. Yeah, I got it somewhere here somewhere. Couple things, and if I shortchange you, please let me know.
Mm-hmm.
Athletic Director of the Year in 2021, and then this year, 2023 and 24.
Mm-hmm. So that award is the national, it's the NACDA award. So it's the National Alliance of Collegiate Directors of Athletics. So it is a national award that you can receive every 4 years. So I got it during COVID, and then I got it again this year. I will receive it in June at the national convention.
Where's that at?
Vegas.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. The cool thing about that particular award is that you're on stage with all of the Division I, Division II, and Division III recipients as well.
You're rubbing shoulders with
the big dogs.
The big boys. Or girls.
Yes,
I'm sorry, big dogs.
No. That's what the cool part is about that award. And unfortunately, the first time I received it, I had to do it through Zoom. So this will be my first experience actually being on the big stage with all those individuals and receiving it.
How did they notify you in, well, let's say 2021 that you got it? Did they give you a phone call? Did someone show up at your door?
No, it was more of an email thing.
It was an email?
Yeah, like, hey, congratulations, this is it. And
tell me a little bit about the COVID year that you stuck out amongst everybody else. Like, what certain things that you did that shined?
So regionally, I guess I can get into like my regional and national work a little bit. So regionally, our region is all of New York State except for downstate. So we have 21 schools currently in Region 3. Region 3 is all of the junior colleges that compete against each other. So in our region, we have regional leadership. So when I first got to Genesee in 2013 as the director of athletics, the next year, and I've always been an advocate for, don't complain about it if you're not willing to step up and fix the problem.
Absolutely.
So there was some things that I felt were not the way they should be within our region. So I ran that following year. I ran to be the assistant women's regional director and was elected. And then soon after that, the person who was the women's director retired. So I took over as the women's director. And then so there was a men's director, men's assistant, women's assistant. There was 4 leadership people at the time. And then after that, they restructured at the national level, and they now we have what's called a board of regents representative. So it used to be that we'd go to the national meeting, the 2 directors would vote on all of the materials. Now you have one person from all of the 24 regions that represents us on a board. So the first year that board opened, the gentleman who was the men's director, moved into that for 1 year. And then because he was retiring, I wasn't going to try to run against him. And then that year I was elected as our board of regents.
Okay.
But through COVID, I was in the board of regents role, or just starting into that role. And we needed to meet regularly. We needed to be well organized. We needed to come up with back to play plans. We needed to get them approved through not only our institutions, but SUNY. So I worked closely with SUNY. I worked closely with our regional leadership. I worked closely with our college presidents to get us back on the docket and get us returning to play as soon as we could. And I'm the organizer. I'm the one who organizes most of the stuff for our region. So that's really what it was, is calling all the meetings and leading us down a path where we could return and actually compete again and get the students back on our campuses and getting it approved through our college presidents. So I met with the SUNY board of college presidents at the junior college level. We met, and I remember I was actually in the dining room at my husband's business because I didn't want to Zoom at home because my kids were there trying to present like our plan to return to play. It was also collaborating not just with us, but also downstate, so that the Nassaus and Duchesses also were on the same court, like play as us field, so that when we're going and trying to get this approved in our state, it was just those pieces of the puzzle that made me, I think, stand out. And that is where I think the nomination came from, because you get a copy of like who nominated and what they said about you. And that was in that as well. So, yeah. And
then this year you said you're going to Vegas to receive your award. Do you get to take your husband and family, or is it just they're flying you out? So we could take the whole family. We have a wedding. Who's got the call? Oh, you got a wedding? We have actually a wedding. We're flying. My husband and I are flying to Florida to be at one of the guys who was in our wedding is getting married. So we're going to fly down there, and then I will fly to Vegas from Florida, and he will fly home to manage the boys in the golf course.
Yeah. Yep. So that's where we're going with that.
Who's the better golfer?
Honestly, I think I am. Right now in our house, I would bet I could beat my husband. I did beat him last time we played together. Yeah. I don't play very often.
Yeah.
Actually funny, Kelly Wilkins is a member at our country club. Yeah. And she keeps bugging. Last night at dinner, my dad's like, Kelly, I saw Kelly today. She wants to come out and play. And I'm like, when do I have time for a 5-hour golf round? I don't have time. But I used to play. I was a member at Salmon for a long time before we had kids. And then now every time I don't have something going for work, I'm with my boys. So
Do they play golf?
they do a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah, they played a lot during COVID,
Mm-hmm.
but now it's all the other sports are taking
Right.
over. So
You also received the 2023 Killian Award.
yes,
Is that from George Killian?
yes.
Is he AD at Fairport, or was it?
No,
Who is he? Tell me a little bit about that.
So I don't know exactly where. So he was in one of the founding individuals for the NJCAA stuff. So his name's George E. Killian. I want to say that he was the president of the board at the time, which was the old structure.
Mm-hmm.
And then they named the award based on like loyalty to the organization because he was there for years and years, and really established a lot of what the junior college, because way back, there was no junior college level and NJCAA and all these things. And he was one of the individuals that helped create that. So I was shocked when I got that award. That is Athletic Director of the Year, obviously, is a big award. But the George E. Killian one was probably the biggest one that I've received. And it was funny. One of the gentlemen I work with, he says, "Kristen, what are you going to do when you're old? What are you going to get when you're old?" Because I'm receiving all these awards when I'm still, relatively young. So yeah. But it was a complete honor. I was shocked. They normally pick 2 individuals to receive that award per year. And it really was a lot to do with the service that I provide to the national office. I'm the D3 oversight chair nationally. I'm the D3 softball chair nationally. I was the D3 soccer chair. And then I also have hosted a bunch of national tournaments. One year Nassau's facility wasn't done, so our facility was done. Our new building that we have at the college that they built was finished, and so they asked me last minute to host men's lacrosse nationals. I hosted it, and then I proceeded to host men's soccer nationals, women's soccer nationals, and then I just got the bid for this year's men's and women's soccer nationals. It's going to be a combined event, about 600 student athletes, coaches, and coming to 16 different teams coming to the campus and into the area.
Good for the local economy and stuff.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Makes a lot of people in the county happy, and part of our funding comes from the county. So
very wise.
Yeah.
Also 2009 Hilton Athletic Hall of Fame inductee. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
And then Hall of Fame for Brockport State in 2003.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that was a little bit earlier.
Yep. Wait, actually, I think that might be backwards. So Hilton Hall of Fame, I was inducted 5 years out.
So that is 99. That would be there. And then
and then I was
inducted. Thank you. Yes.
And then
it's hard to keep these all straight.
It's fine. And then I was also inducted into the Chase Hall of Fame.
Oh.
So the Chase Hall of Fame was the old basketball tournament. They don't run it anymore. And it was just all the colleges and all the Division III colleges locally would compete in that tournament over the winter. And so I was inducted in that Hall of Fame shortly thereafter the other 2.
Okay. Well, thank you for bringing that out. Yeah. What do you see as the biggest challenge in your profession coming up?
Everything.
Everything. Just can't pinpoint.
I know on the athletic side, it is, all of the unionizing and the paying athletes and the NIL and all of those things.
So the NIL does even go down to the junior colleges.
I have not had to deal with it yet, but I will say that some of the larger Division I junior colleges across the country have, and it's coming whether we like it or not. And I actually, it's just how do you deal with it? How do you move through it? How do you make sure you're legally doing what you're supposed to be doing? The compliance of it is tough. And then the unionizing of the athletes is also tough because if that comes down and we have to pay our athletes, a lot of junior colleges will struggle with that.
And I don't mean to hit into a hornet's nest. What about the Title IX with transgender athletes? Does that affect junior colleges, and where's that stand?
So right now, well, I'll be honest, we follow a lot of the NCAA protocol. So whatever the NCAA states, I mean, even at the junior college level across the board, like we follow the NCAA handbook for all of our sports. Okay. We basically are the little sister, little brother to the NCAA. Okay. So when that happened, we're trying to get out in front of it just like everybody else. But it really was taking the language that they currently abide by and instilling it into ours. But it also you also have to be careful with that specifically because of this difference in state laws. Okay. So it's a moving piece of the puzzle. That's also something that's one of the tough things. Good. Yeah. Well, I don't say good, but it sounds like you got a handle on it. We're trying to get out ahead of it. Yeah. And we have a lawyer at the national level that is helping us through it as a board to try to make sure that our handbook reads correctly and we're doing all the things we need to do. So
sounds good. Yeah. Do you have any desire to go on to a bigger college?
So
there's thousands of people watching.
So. Oh yeah, I know. So Honestly,
You're 43 years old.
yeah, I know.
You got a lot of years of working ahead. Well, if you want.
Yeah. So I've been asked that a lot. And one of the, and it's funny. So it's a unique situation. I'm location bound because of my husband.
Yeah.
So, and I don't foresee him selling the business.
Sure.
I mean, we would like to see if it could go a fourth generation. I chose the route of moving up nationally in my junior college profession
Gotcha.
instead of moving location wise. There has been some things that I have been offered over the years that have been, I'd love to do, but I can't move at that point. And even without interviewing, I've been offered positions recently, as much as a couple months ago. And maybe down the road though, because it's hard to leave the state after you're in the state. You're a teacher.
Sure.
So I'm New York State retirement. So I would foresee myself probably retiring from Genesee and maybe early, and then maybe go do something else at that time if my husband wants to go south and do something different. Or yeah. So right now, though, I'm happy. I love what I do. I'll be honest. I'm the acting vice president because we're in a presidential transition here. So the life of what I hold and what I oversee is still up for debate in the next few months here. But I will tell you that I had the opportunity to take the position, but I would never want to give up athletics.
Right.
So I need to stay with what I'm passionate about and be happy in my career. So we just have to work through the logistics of it all. If that makes sense.
Sure does. Round out a couple questions here.
Yeah.
What's your leisure activity that you do just to relax and get away from it all?
My favorite thing to do is be at my pool.
Okay.
We built a in-ground pool at our house along with a pool house. And that is my favorite thing during the summer, to just relax and be out there, and the kids go swimming and hang out.
Nice.
Leisure activity. I read sometimes. I actually just got a chance to start reading again because we've been so busy, but we went on a vacation, an all-inclusive vacation. And I literally got to read a book while my kids went and played with whatever sport was on the hour at the hour for that thing. Yeah, I don't get a lot of downtime. So it's really, is cleaning a leisure activity or doing laundry?
Some people do. They love cleaning, yes.
I don't love it, but it seems to be the thing I do in my spare time. So,
favorite book? You got a favorite book of all time? You think back maybe high school, college, anything?
I don't know.
No.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I used to read just all the romance novels. Yeah. But now I read, different things. And a lot of times, sometimes it's, inspirational stuff from big time coaches that,
what's a more of one that you read from a big time coach that really, stuck with you? Like my daughter read Jay Billis. He read one.
Yeah. And then Gino has one that's pretty good. Like there's been a bunch of them that have been good. And I also read a lot of leadership stuff. Sure. And I pick up different skill sets from those, and not the whole book, because sometimes you're like, it's just repetitive.
That's why they have a table of contents.
Yeah. So I do that. I only read the chapters that I really want to look into. The other thing I've been reading a lot of recently is books that pertain to how to build character in others and how to strengthen other people's weaknesses. Like if you find something in an employee that you're like, wow, they're really just not good at that, but they're so good at all these other pieces. How can you help them to learn the skills they need to be successful? So that's what I've tried to transition into a little bit too. Yeah.
Favorite food?
Crab legs.
Crab legs.
All right. Yeah.
Movie?
My favorite movie? Probably A League of Their Own.
That's the baseball movie. Is it Tom Hanks?
Yep. Gina Davis.
There's no crying in baseball, that line?
Yeah.
Cute movie.
Yeah, we used to watch it every year, actually in high school. That was my high school softball. Like, that's one of the things I do remember. The other thing I remember is Kenny Rogers, the Gambler.
Of course. Was
literally the softball team's song when I was in high school. Really? Yeah. The Gambler was on the bus, everyone singing on the way to sectionals at McAvoy Park every year.
Nice.
Those are the things that you asked me some questions earlier. I'm like, I can't remember who we played, but I remember the experience of
the culture, like you were talking about. Yeah. Favorite TV show, if you have any time to watch?
I don't know. I watch Hallmark movies.
That's okay. Why are you looking at me like I gotta admit it?
Because they make fun of me all the time. My whole family makes fun of me because
it's great to get lost in them. Though.
Yeah, it's easy. It's not. You don't have to pay all attention. Some of the suspense movies, you have to pay attention to who's doing what and when and where. You can just kind of relax, and that way I don't have to think. Right. Yeah, I do a lot of thinking all the other times.
Well, it sounds like you do. Even when you read, you're doing those self-help books that are trying to get you to learn to teach others. So
Yeah.
Favorite quote? You ever have a favorite quote? Like some famous person said it once. Could be the Loudon character or
Oh, I mean,
Mike Mayer yelling it on the
quote.
court.
Oh man. I have another funny Mike Mayer story. He didn't like our warm-up music, so he made our warm-up tape one year. And so we ran out of the gym to The Heat Is On. Do you remember the song The Heat Is On?
The heat is on.
Yeah. Yeah. Our
Did you guys just you must have been really
we were
loose
dying.
for that
Oh,
game.
it was so embarrassing. But yes, that was something I do remember because he didn't like, we had made a new warm-up tape and he didn't like it because it was like, yeah. So that was one of the things. Quote, I'm trying to think of a quote.
We don't do that. Quote favorite song, I guess, or favorite music genre.
Okay. Depends on what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly country.
Okay.
Big country fan. Chris Stapleton, Carly Pierce, those are some of my favorites. But if I'm working out, it's more like hip hop.
Okay.
Because it's faster. Yeah. So
do you work out at your house or do you go to a gym?
I work out at my house.
Okay.
I'm a big Peloton person.
Yes.
So I bought the Peloton bike a couple years ago, and then I bought the Peloton treadmill most recently. I like the programming in it.
That people that are on the screen and talking to you.
Yeah. And well,
you fired up.
The first year I had just the bike, it was a competitive thing because you get on the bike and you can see the time that you had before. So then it was like, I have to beat my time every time. And then it got to the point
you're competitive, I can tell.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm not going to get worse.
Yeah. So, but then since then I'm like, I'm getting older. I can't just compete every time I get on the bike. So now it's just competing to make sure you're in the top 10% or whatever it is. And yeah.
And you work out 5 days a week or?
I try to. I recently though had an injury, a sport injury. I was playing football at my 13-year-old's birthday party and stepped wrong. Oh, it was my 11-year-old's birthday party.
Did you blow an ankle or?
No, actually, a ligament in my leg. So I haven't been, this is actually the second week that I've had to be able to back working. I had to take 2 months off. So.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. But yeah, you get older, you kind of injure yourself sometimes. I just stepped wrong and did it.
I get muscle cramps in the middle of the night and it's like, I got to get out of bed. Well, whatever. Yeah. That's me. 3 people you could have dinner with in history if you could bring them back.
3 people to have dinner with.
Athletics, historical figures, presidents.
Yeah, okay.
Somebody that was an inspiration.
That's a hard
relative.
One.
Well, just think of one maybe. Maybe someone you never met. Maybe someone you didn't have enough time with.
Honestly, I would like to have dinner with my father's mother. Because everyone always tells me that I look a lot like my mom, but I have a lot of traits from my grandmother too. And so I don't really remember her because she died when I was very young. But as far as famous people, I mean, there's tons of people I'd like to meet. Any country artist I'd like to meet. That'd be fantastic. Anyone famous, really. I've never met anybody famous. Never ran into anybody randomly or anything.
Well, you might when you go out and get that award and you're up with all those Division I.
I mean, yeah.
There's got to be other, not just the ADs, but there's going to be
other people.
Celebs.
Yeah. Actually, the president of the Las Vegas Raiders is doing one of those like prime time speeches there. So she's somebody that I would like to meet too. But,
good.
Yeah.
Bucket list. You got anything on your bucket list? You're only 43. Oh, I can't keep. You never bring up a female's age.
I graduated in 99. It's not hard to figure out.
I know. Anything on a bucket list? 1 or 2 things.
So my biggest thing is just to, I want to travel. Mm-hmm. I have only been out of the country a few times Canada, I don't count that, but Jamaica, Cancun, I'd like to go overseas and travel. And, over the years, our men's soccer program at Genesee is primarily all international students. And so I would like to go over and see their culture because they've been in ours and they all laugh and call me their campus mom because I take care of them while they're here. Sure. And so I would like to go to England, Ireland, Paris, like all those places and visit and try to do that. That's really the bucket list. I would also like to go to the Super Bowl.
Me too. Well, I've already been once. So I'd like the Bills to win it. What was your favorite team?
Bills.
All right.
Yeah. Bills, Yankees.
Yep. Yep. Them too.
Yeah.
I always wanted to go to a Yankees game in a Final Four. Never been to one of those.
Oh, yeah.
Men's or women's now.
So Yankees game I've been to. So my oldest son wants to travel and see every baseball stadium in the U.S. So we have this wooden travel map and we put the balls into it every time. Like there's holes where all the stadiums are. So we have been traveling as a family to all the different stadiums. We went to both New York's, both Pennsylvania's, Baltimore. I'm missing one. But we're flying out to Chicago this summer. And then we are going to go to Cleveland this summer too.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's a bucket
That's a good
list
plan. That is neat. And
Yeah.
your kids too.
Yeah, and it's cool because it makes us do things together.
Any advice you have, and I want to put to female student athletes? I know you deal with the culture of both the male and female,
Yeah.
what about?
So I actually saw a sign the other day. What did it say? It said females who are an athlete or females who are in athletics end up being females who lead. And I do think that's true. I think that a lot of what we learn is, and we have to go through as student athletes, as on the female side, is we have to persevere through a lot of things. And we get to a point in your life where some athletes choose not to go on; they choose to go to work instead. My recommendation would be just to continue to work hard and continue to demand the seat at the table. So, I sit in a room full of athletic directors in our region, and there are 3 females out of 21 ADs.
Right.
And I'm the one that's our Board of Regents representative because I wanted that seat and I earned it and I was elected to that seat. And, and it's the same thing at the national level on the board I sit on. It's, there aren't a ton of females that are involved in the organization, and we try to continuously promote that. But it's like, if that's your dream, go for it. There's no one that can not let you accomplish all the goals that you have in life. So just keep working hard. And that's what I said earlier. Like, I may not always be the smartest person in the world, but I will be the hardest worker always.
As we finish up here, sometimes I don't want, I have a daughter too, and my wife and I, every time we try to get a good teacher, we always want her to be with a strong female role model. And that's where we want her growing up. And I think I just talked to one for over an hour. And I really liked getting to know you. And I could see the person behind all the awards. And I think you got a lot coming up in your future too.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It was nice to get to know you as well.
You too.
Yeah.
So Kristen Schuth.
Yes.
She's been our guest on the Big H podcast, and pay attention in the future for more guests. Good day.